Hello everybody, my name is Nemo and today is the day, the expansion. Alright, let's download it. No! Alright, in all seriousness though, while I'm waiting on the expansion to finally come out today, let's go and check out my deck build for Chant with Daya. I actually have a few decks. Most of them I'm done building, so I can just start churning out these deck builds. Of course, when the expansion comes out, I do want to first play a little with the expansion decks, but I'm gonna be able to catch up because most of these are done, and I just need to give you guys the deck builds. So I decided to start with Chant of the Daya because I really dislike how powerful aggro is in this meta. So I thought I'd show you guys a deck that's a little different, very fun to play, and when built right, really wrecks Evanston's Glory, as well as the Zombies deck. So let's go ahead and check this out. So I'm just gonna ignore this for now. We'll get back to this and I'll tell you why it's not in the deck. We've got Exploration here. The problem with this card is I'd rather just have some ramp or a land. Like, if including this in the deck means I take out a ramp card. I don't want to take out a ramp card to include Exploration, because that means, well, I mean, this obviously gets me there faster, but if I don't have the amount of lands in hand to actually get the 6, then, you know, having another land or a ramp card is better. And it's way more consistent. Now, if there were like 4 explorations that you could put in the deck, then I'd consider it, because then you could just load up your deck with land and play exploration and play all those lands. However, it still only allows you to play an additional land on each of your turns. So there's one card that allows you to play like all your lands. I don't know, it's super broken, but that card, I'd definitely consider that one. Not so much for exploration though. So the fact that there's only 2 means you have to add it to a regular build, which is usually better with a little with not that much land, but mostly ramp. Because, you know, if you can substitute land for ramp, then you can get there faster. You can get ramp ramps you up, obviously, so you're a turn ahead after playing ramp. So I think it's very important anyways to have a good balance of land and ramp. So, you know, I'm skipping some cards here, but we'll get back to them while I'm on the subject of the ramp. A good mix of the ramp. So let's just actually look at all the ramp I got here. First off, the most important card in the deck. Well, I guess that's debatable, but Primeval Titan really gets this deck going. You need to get the 6 lands. Once you're at 6 lands, you can probably drop a Primeval Titan in your set. So you really need your 6 lands, and that's basically how it works. You need your 6 lands, you drop Primeval Titan. After that, you can play pretty much anything in the deck. So very important card. You want all of the Primeval Titans. Next, we've got. Let's look at these. I got 2 Oracles of Daya. They're 3 in the deck. I'm running only 2 of them. We also have Farhaven Elf. I'm running 3 of them, where there's 4 in the deck. Then there's Rampant Growth. I'm running 3, where there's 4 in the deck. I'm running 2 Explorers, where there's 4 in the deck. And I'm running 1 Colony Heart Expedition, where there's 4 in the deck. So why am I running a little bit of each, basically? Because I think it's very important to have a balanced ramp set. You know, this is basically explore and then it keeps on going. And it's like exploring each turn. So Oracle of Daya is pretty good. And it's probably the best ramp spell in there. But it's also 4 mana. So if I just include all of the Oracle of Daya, first off, they become not so good if you draw them multiples. But next, let's say you have like 3 lands, and if this is your only ramp spell, well, maybe you never get the 4th land. You got all this ramp, but you can't actually help yourself out to getting to the 4 lands to be able to play your ramp. That would be kind of silly. So for that reason, it's important to also have, although less powerful ramp spells, you know, spells you can have more chance of actually being able to cast. So we got the Farhaven Elves. Now there's only 3 of these rather than 4 because again, what if you don't get the free lands? You need to have a 2-cost ramp spell to be able to get there. And that's why we mostly want 2-cost ramp spells. And you know, the nice thing about 2-cost ramp spells is once you're at turn 4 you can play 2 of those. Which is better than playing 1 free drop. We got 6 2-cost ramp spells, 3-cost ramp spells, and of course this is a great ramp spell because it also gives you a dude that can chump block for a turn, which keeps you alive while you're ramping. Pretty nice. So that's basically it when it comes to the ramp. Now, why do I have 3 rampant growths and 2 explorers? I like a rampant growth a little more because it gives you a little more certainty that you're actually going to get a land. Rampant growth, I mean 100% you get a land, unless there's no more land in your deck, I guess. Whereas Explore, much better in the late game than Rampant Growth. Because late game, if you got all your lands out, then Rampant Growth doesn't do anything. Whereas this, well, let's just draw another card, see if that helps. So Explore's pretty good, Rampant Growth's pretty good. We want a nice balanced mix of it. And the fact that aggro decks are pretty dominant here means that if there's going to be one of them I want more of, it's got to be Rampant Growth. We got Colony Heart Expedition, we have one of these. I don't particularly like this card, but I think it's a card that, include of one of, it's pretty good in a ramp deck, because you don't want to draw this in multiples, because then again, what if you get stuck on not being able to get past 4 lands? What if you play one turn 2, and then like you draw 2 more lands and another Colony Heart Expedition? Now you're at 4 lands, and you've got you've got 2 counters on one Colony Heart Expedition, 1 counter on another. You're not going to be able to pop them to get more lands. You're stuck at 4 lands, you're going to get overrun. So it's better to only have 1 if you're going to include 1. Now, the issue is not that big of getting stuck on 4 lands, because I have the other ramp to help trigger this thing. The only issue would be if you draw it like turn 4. In which case it may not be too relevant anymore. But the fact that, I think that's pretty offset by the fact that it's really good in conjunction with, in combination with Avenger of Zendikar, and even like Grazing Gladeart, because normally if they just instant kill a Grazing Gladeart or the Avenger of Zendikar, you don't get anything out of it. I mean, you got a lot of 0-1 plant tokens now, but whatever. I guess you got blockers, but if you can actually react to them instant speed killing your drop by popping your Colony Heart Expedition, getting 2 lands, triggering the landfall ability twice, that's really pretty good. Since that works so well with the landfall, especially on the Avenger of Zendikar, I definitely want one of these in there. I think it's a pretty good card. And it ramps you up too, of course. So, not only does it work well once Avenger is on the board, it also helps you be able to play Avenger a turn earlier, because maybe you can then skip the Primeval Titan altogether and just go from 5 to 7 lands and drop the Avenger a turn earlier, which is of course pretty important. So that's it when it comes to the ramp. That's basically my ramp package. I've got 26 lands. Again, nice decent mix of lands and ramp. I could like add the other rampant growth and take out a land, but I think I'm mostly playing this by ear. Mostly from the games I've played, I feel like this is the best balance. I haven't really done the math on it or anything, so if you want to do the math, it's pretty easy. You can just Google. I'm pretty sure there's ways to easily do math on how much ramp and how much lands you need in a deck like this. But from my experience, the 26 land is right, because ramping is nice and you get there a turn earlier. Sometimes if you get too many ramp spells, you can't play them all. Whereas if you just have a land in your hand, you can just play the land and play a ramp spell. So actually having a little bit more land is, I think in this case, makes the deck faster, because getting too much ramp, I mean, you still need a turn to play it all. So I think this is the right balance, but again, I haven't done any math on this or anything. This is just how I feel about it, and after playing the deck quite a bit, You know, how it feels like it performs best. So take that as you will. Either way, we've got a Skewed Mob here, which is an amazing card. I really like Skewed Mob in this deck because if you need a Chump Blocker early on, it's just a 1-drop. You can Chump Block with it, fine. If it saves you and allows you to get that turn to play the Avenger of Zendikar, survive, and then kill them, you know, it's done its job. That's great. If, however, you don't need to Chump Block with it, it grows and grows and it becomes a threat of its own. The opponent can't swing in with half their team, or maybe even more of it, because there's a big 5/5 blocker out there while you're just ramping. That's all you're doing. Like, you drop this turn 1, and since then you've just been ramping, but you got a 5/5 and you got to deal with it. Now, they can remove it, of course, but if they're using a removal spell on your 1-drop, you're happy. So it's pretty good. Skewed Mob is a-okay with me, and plus the time they spend to remove this guy, they don't spend it casting another dude, most likely. So they're not optimizing their mana efficiency for playing it aggressively, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And then, after all that, if this guy still survives while you drop your Avenger of Zendikar or your other big bomb, this guy can start swinging in, because your other big bomb is now covering on defense, and you're a turn earlier on trying to kill them. If they top deck some kind of miracle answer, then they're gonna have to top deck it the turn earlier. So, pretty good. Skewed Mob, great card. We got Green Sun Zenith here. And Green Sun Zenith is great. First of all, because it allows you to tutor the most important bomb you have, Avenger of Zendikar. I'm going to talk about that card a lot here. Second, you get to choose which you tutor. If you really need some other dude, you can get it. Yes, it's one mana more to get whatever you need, but usually that's not that big of a deal. And the third reason Green Sun Zenith is great is because if you don't need a bomb, but you need a ramp spell, Green Sun Zenith is your ramp spell. If you don't need a ramp, but you need a bomb, Green Sun Zenith is your bomb. Great card. Lots of options, just overall amazing, and if you really need that Primeval Titan, you can get it. Although, once you're at 7 mana, you probably don't really need the Primeval Titan anymore. Then we got Tangle here. Also an amazing card. This can buy you the time. And yes, it's card disadvantage for you in the very, very long run. But it saves you for 2 turns. It gives you 2 turns that they can attack you. Or they can deal damage to you with the dudes they have on that 1 turn that you play it. And that just gives you such a tempo advantage. It's incredible. Whereas if you didn't have Tangle, you'd be dead. It can turn a game like that into, well, now I Tangle, so I have the time to play my Avenger of Zendikar, and I get an extra turn, and I can use that time to attack with the Avenger of Zendikar. Like, that's the difference it makes. It's just an amazing card, so you definitely want to run both of those. I'll get back to the Vastwood Hydra in a second as well. So, I'll also be getting back to the Grazing Gladeart. We got 2 Fierce Empaths, of course, amazing card. They're chump blockers as well as being able to tutor whatever bomb you need. Mostly Avenger of Zendikar. But if you already happen to have Avenger of Zendikar, you can tutor whatever you need and put a chump blocker down onto the table there. We got Harmonize. What? Why are these icons here not blue mana? So this is a green spell that draws you 3 cards for 4 mana. And it's green. It's a green draw cards. Yeah? Is that what's going on here? Okay, yeah, it's in. Not much else to say about that. Like, why? How come green suddenly gets a draw 3 card? I don't know, but I'm really happy about it. So, Primeval Titan, of course, I already said that's an amazing card. I guess we can talk a little bit about Rites of Flourishing here. Now, Rites of Flourishing is a pretty awful card. They keep insisting on putting this in somewhere in the Duels games, and I don't know why, because it's a pretty terrible card. Unless you're playing like some kind of mill deck, or you're playing like a Turbo Fog kind of deck, or something like that, where you stuff your deck with all kinds of cards like Sleep and Fog, and all kinds of cards like that, and then you have one win condition somewhere in it, and you just play your Rites of Flourishing, and because of that you're able to draw all your Fogs, and you know the opponent can't do anything. So it doesn't matter that they're drawing cards. unless you're playing it in a deck like that, you don't want to include a card like Rites of Flourishing. Rites of Flourishing is just bad in this deck because your bombs cost a lot more than the opponent's bombs, and they're gonna be able to drop 2 bombs for your 1 bomb. So you definitely don't want to let them draw more cards. We've got Vigor here, which is an amazing card, and that's why Vastwood Hydra isn't in the deck, because Vigor does his job better and he shuffles back into the library. With Vigor out, not only is it really tough for the opponent to block your dudes when you're coming in and attacking them, but more importantly, it's really difficult for the opponent to attack into Vigor. If they don't have a removal spell for this guy, he's just gonna sit there, and whatever else you have out, all these 1/1 chump blockers you played earlier while ramping, like, if they attack into it with a, let's say they've got a 10/10, one of those 1-drops from Avacyn's Glory, right? And they made it a 10/10, like, let's just, I don't care, super ridiculous. It doesn't matter, because your 1/1 can block it, and it becomes an 11/11. So incredible. This guy is really powerful, and it gives this deck some late game staying power, without having to include some of the other later drops, simply because it shuffles back into your library, so you've always at least got 1 creature you can cast. Unless they pacify it or something, but they pacified it's not off the board and it's doing its job, so I probably wouldn't mind that. So moving on here, we've got, jeez, did I just skip these? Right, let's talk about Vengevine, I guess. I'm going all over the place, aren't I? Well, Vengevine, just doesn't do enough for this deck. I don't get it. This isn't an aggro deck. I mean, sure, I'm trying to ramp as fast as possible, drop the best bombs as possible, as fast as possible, to kill the opponent as fast as possible. That doesn't really make this an aggro deck. And the time you spend casting Vengevine, you might as well just have ramped and play something else a turn later instead of 2 turns later. So, you know, I don't see why Vengevine is in here. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. We got Elvish Piper here, which I'm not running because, well, actually, I guess it's better to come back to this later, but really, the main issue here is, well, I guess I could just spoil it for you. I'm not running any of the Eldrazi, so Elvish Piper doesn't do much for me. But the other issue is, the turn you spend casting this, like for 4 mana, if you ramped that turn, you're probably at 6 mana the next turn, and you can start dropping bombs. So really, this sets you back that turn, the last turn you need to ramp up to your bombs. And if they then deal with this guy, then you're 2 turns behind on dropping your bombs. Whereas, if you just ramped 1 more turn, then you drop your Primeval Titan and they kill your Primeval Titan instead of killing the Elvish Piper, you still got your lands, you can now start dropping your bombs, and just keep on dropping bombs afterward. I guess the upside to Elvish Piper is, if it's on the field and they can't deal with it, I guess against like Guardians of Light or the Mirror Match, especially the Mirror Match, then having Elvish Piper on the board, of course, means you can drop 2 bombs a turn instead of just dropping 1 bomb a turn, because you can use its ability and hardcast the bomb. So that's the upside, but like if they deal with this, you're so far behind. Even against the blue deck, where if they don't counterspell this, it's on the board, and they still have 4 unsummons in their deck, and if they just unsummon it for 1 mana, you lose a whole turn of ramping for that 1 mana, and they still drop more bombs, and yeah, I don't know, it's just bad. You don't want that to happen, so I don't like Elvish Piper. We got Into the Wilds, which is just way worse than Oracle of Moldaya, but I guess it's not a creature, so, you know, harder to deal with and all that, but pretty bad card in comparison anyways. Woodborn Behemoth, I like the card, but I don't like it enough. It is a 5-cost guy that grows bigger later on, but, you know, in comparison, this guy basically has the same job, except you can drop it turn 1, and you don't usually need to cast the 5-cost guy, because you're ramping on turn 4, and you can drop a 6-cost guy next turn, so you can just safely skip on all the 5 drops, and the 6 drops are better, so you play those instead. Then we've got Dramatic Entrance. I guess if you're stuck on 5 lands, you really can't get your 6th land. You can Dramatic Entrance your Primeval Titan. Aside from that though, especially in the Mirror Match, if you do run the Eldrazi, a Dramatic Entrance can be quite good, because if you get it out early enough, and you know, the Annihilator just wrecks the Mirror Match. So Getting something with Annihilator out before your opponent has the mana to even cast their own thing, then that's obviously you're basically guaranteed to win that game, and especially since all the Eldrazi don't die to All's Dust. So, but aside from that, not a great card. It's card disadvantage, and again, you're gonna probably be skipping turn 5. Plow another card that's amazing in the mirror match. It's also amazing if the opponent stop decking, but you're probably the one that's on the back foot rather than them. And if they're the one that's on the back foot, you're probably killing them that turn. So, Bountiful Harvest. I guess we can compare this. I guess we've got 3 different cards for life gain, so let's just compare all of them together. We've got Grazing Gladeheart or Bountiful Harvest or Black-a-Worm. Alright, so turn 7 you've got 7 lands out. Well, if you play Bountiful Harvest that turn, you gain 7 life. If you play Black-a-Worm that turn, you get a 7/7 and you gain 7 life. I think I know what's better. I think we don't need Bountiful Harvest here. And now, comparing Black-a-Worm with Grazing Gladeheart, now that is the big one. I was running a lot of these Black-a-Worms at first instead of the Grazing Gladehearts, but I've slowly switched to wanting the Grazing Gladehearts more than the Black-a-Worms. With the promos, of course, there are quite a few more 7-cost creatures. First, well, this isn't 7-cost, but there's Vigor, there's Gaia's Revenge, there's Avenger of Zendikar, there's an extra All's Dust. All of this stuff, I'd rather cast than Black-a-Worm. If I'm, let's say, Green Sun Zenithing and the best target I got is Black-a-Worm, then that means that game probably isn't going well for me. Because I gained the 7 life, sure, saved me for a turn, fine. But if I'm attacking with Black-a-Worm the turn after, it's only 7 damage. I'm not gonna kill anybody with 7 damage. This deck needs to get like the crazy board state where you can kill them in 1 turn or something like that. Or just totally All's Dust and survive. I guess the only thing is against burn. Then Black-a-Worm could be better than any of the other big guys, but other than that, the better way to gain your life and ensure that you can survive is to just start gaining it earlier. A free cost guy is much more likely that you're gonna have a turn to play it and play something else. And plus, if I get this guy down early, then he's already been gaining me the life that I would later gain from Black-a-Worm. And he can chump block early. Yes, it's only a 2/2, but in this deck, a 2/2 versus a 7/7 doesn't really matter that much, because the 7/7 is probably going to be on defense as well, if you drop your Avenger of Zendikar. I definitely think Grazing Gladeheart is better. But I don't want 4 of these, because there's only so much room in the deck, and I want to spend enough slots on it for ramp, and I want to spend enough slots on it for game-winning bombs. So only 3 Grazing Gladehearts, but I think they're better than Black-a-Worm, especially since the format is so aggro heavy. I just want to gain my life early, and then be able to play something I want to play rather than having to play the Black-a-Worm because I'm dying that turn. We got Summoning Trap here, which I don't play because most of the time the card works. Sometimes it doesn't, and those sometimes that it doesn't, they can lose you the game, and that's pretty aggravating. With some luck, you can get out an Avenger of Zendikar earlier, really, but again, I mean, look at my mana curve. The highest cost creature I have is 8 mana. I may as well just hardcast that and Summoning Trap it. So, the only advantage here is that it's instant speed and that it's great against Mind Maze, but that's it. I mean, if a lot of people start running the Izzet deck with all of those counter spells in there's like 8 or something like that, it's pretty crazy, then you can think about re-adding these Summoning Traps. But until then, I'm not using them. And plus this guy works against counter spells anyway. So I think that means we've got the Gaia's Revenge to talk about here. Gaia's Revenge can be countered, pretty nice. But that's mostly, the extra. Haste, also pretty nice, but also, again, mostly the extra, because it doesn't have trample, so, the main thing that I like this card for is the can't be the target of non-green spells or abilities from non-green sources. That's pretty nice, because most of the removal isn't green. Like, the only green removal exists in form of stuff like Prey Upon. Which, alright, granted, they can easily prey upon this guy, but it's probably going to kill whatever they use to prey upon it. So, against the wide majority of decks, this guy is just hexproof. They can't deal with it, and that's pretty nice. Now, he's even better if you do include Eldrazi Conscription, because he's the perfect target for it with his semi-hexproof. I don't include Eldrazi Conscription, but I still think this guy is worth running. He just, sometimes you need a bomb that they can't actually answer, and he's your guy. So, Avenger of Zendikar. Out of all the promos, this is the best one. Hands down. Hands down. Turn this deck from, a deck that's somewhere in the middle of all the decks and has some potential to one of the 5 best decks in the game. At least for the 10 originals, that is. Obviously, we've got the big 3 decks. But right after that comes this deck with Guardians of Light. And Avenger of Zendikar really made this deck shine. It's just everything you want. Everything you want. If you're in trouble, then this guy saves you with all the plant tokens being able to block. And if you want to win the game, this guy does it. And most of the time, he does both. He saves you from being killed and wins you the game. How awesome is that? 10 out of 10 for this card. You want him. I don't really think anybody's not running him. So let's not dwell on him too long. 2 Fanail, I consider this a 9 cost spell. So we'll get back to it, I guess. We got all the Alles Dust. Yeah, board wipes. I mean, great, perfect. We want to survive the aggro, so we got all the board wipes in there. Again, maybe if everybody's playing AZ, you don't necessarily want board wipes, but until that time, you want these. So we've got, from the 8 drops, we have Ulamog's Crusher here and Eldrazi Conscription. I consider Terastodon the best one, and the reason is that Terastodon brings in 18 power and toughness for 8 mana. So that is pretty ridiculous, and you can safely blow up your own land once you're at 8 mana. I mean, you still have 5 mana left, and most of the time you probably have some to spare anyways, and it's not really a big deal, so you can easily blow up your own land. And if you really need to, you can deal with an artifact or an enchantment, or you can land screw somebody, which is great as well. But mostly the 18 power and toughness and the fact that it's 4 blockers is really the reason I want Terastodon. It's just a really good card. It can take over the game on its own, and it's basically like a mini Avenger of Zendikar, so definitely want these. In comparison, Ulamog's Crusher, an 8/8 versus the 18 power and toughness, and it's only got Annihilator 2, and it has to attack. Sometimes you really need to block. Nah. Annihilator 2, fine and all, but most of the time people have 2 cards they can sack. By the time you start attacking, you probably want to kill them in 1 turn, because if they can launch a counter attack, you don't want that to happen. So the Annihilator, it's just icing on the cake. It's really not important at all. We got Eldrazi Conscription. The reason I'm not running this is because if they just unsummon my dude, I mean, that would be terrible. You don't want that to happen. So, I mean, it's win more, basically. The only reason you would want to consider adding this card is for the mirror match. Because, again, the first person to get Annihilator is probably the guy who's going to win the game. Because if you have to sack your lands or your permanent, it can be really tough because you want to play your heavy cost spells, so sacking lands is usually not an option. So Annihilator really hurts this deck more than any other deck. Great card there, and the other matchup, not so much. Now, we've got Artisan of Kozilek, which is a great card, and I just felt that it wasn't needed. I had it in the deck for a very long time, but in the end I took it out for in favor of stuff like Vigor, Chaos Revenge, that I can cast earlier. Most of the time, this is unneeded and it's sitting in your hand. Now granted, most of the time, you're winning anyways, if you can cast any of these other guys, so it doesn't really matter that much that it's in your hand. But sometimes you get a game where you draw this instead of another bomb, and you can't cast it in time and you're sad. And then there's only a few games where he's really actually needed for his recursion effect. And most of those are the mirror match. Because again, Annihilator, very important in the mirror match. And going late game and having the card advantage. If someone digs out of the hole where he has enough lands to survive the Annihilator stuff. And he can actually set up. And you're both setting up, then of course the going late game with this and getting the card advantage is really important. So both ways, the Annihilator and the getting another dude back, very good in the mirror match. But aside from that, he's not that great. And most of these Eldrazi are really good if you bring them out with Elvish Piper. But why do we need to be so complicated? Why don't we just get some earlier bombs? Like, I feel like you're spoiled if you're running a 10-9 for 9 mana. When you could just run a 6-6 for 6 mana and probably win the game that way. I mean, what are we talking about here? Look at how much power this guy brings to the board and how much power this guy brings to the board. What do we need this for? And this is just getting even crazier. Although, I have to say, Annihilator 3 is a lot better than Annihilator 2. Because that may just get them to have to sack enough guys that it actually matters. The first turn you swing in. But we got It That Betrays. Amazing card. Of course, it's great if you can get it out early by cheating it into play with Elvish Piper, Dramatic Entrance, or Summoning Trap. But if you're not running those cards, then I don't want It That Betrays. Because I'm not spending 12 mana on a dude when I can probably end the game way earlier. Probably the turn after I drop Avengers in the card. So, don't really see the need for that. But again, stuff like that, it's mostly useful in the mirror match. Now, one thing about Artisan of Kozilek, it's probably going to be a lot better against the Demon deck, because that's an actual control deck. I mean, control decks we have now, even the weird Mind Maze control build, as well as the blue-black Dimir, Masks of the Dimir deck, those decks are more based on tempo than actually, card advantage and just trading their removal spells for your bombs. So once we get an actual deck like that, which is going to be the mono black deck that's coming with the expansion, that deck, it's actually worthwhile to use high cost creatures, because the game's probably going to go long, and this is card advantage as well as bombs, so much better in that matchup. But unless a lot of people are going to be playing that deck, I don't think we need it. So that's basically the deck build. And yeah, that's it. Alright, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. My name's Nemo. My name will still be Nemo. And if there's time before the expansion hits, I'm gonna get some gameplay with this. So stay tuned, and I'll see you next time.